everyone. We are back once again. And now I have Salon Fellow Brianne Hughes, who is coming to us from, I believe you are in San Francisco. Yes?
South San Francisco.
In San Francisco, representing Team San Francisco. Brianne is a historical linguist, and she, we just clarified, dabbles in lexicography. And she's our resident word nerd. And she is going to be presenting a little bit of history and information about a phrase to bear, which, as you might have seen in the Facebook preview, is somehow going to connect St. Christopher with Satan, which I'm excited to learn about. Before we get started, Brianne, I wanted to ask you one question, which is, what weird thing did you learn during the pandemic?
Yeah, so one thing I've been doing is going through a book called The Daily Ukulele. It's full of old songs, and one of them is The Caissons Go Rolling Along, which is a fun, like, army march song. I was like, what's a caisson? It turns out it's the little wagon full of artillery that people used to use, like 1900s. So the army still uses this song, but now they've changed it. They no longer refer to the caissons. But in this book, it's still using that original. So I got into a weird niche that's earlier than World War II, World War I history, which I don't often get into. So
and word nerdery.
Yeah, word nerdery, right. It's a big something. O-N means big. So it's like, is a big something. It's big artillery.
We have already learned something, everyone. Okay. So I'm going to kick it over to you. So thank you again, Brianne. Thanks for joining us today and sharing a little of your odd expertise.
Happy to be here. Wonderful. So hi, odd friends. Happy Giving Tuesday. Today I want to talk to you about language families and how even after thousands of years and so many generations, you can still find family resemblance between distant word relatives. English has a voracious appetite, so you're going to know a lot of these descendant words, and hopefully connecting them together today will be a delightful family reunion for your brain. Before we get into specific etymologies, let's talk about English's general ancestry. The simplest paternity results will tell you that English is a Germanic language with Romance vocabulary. Our mechanics and grammar are from German, but we have a lot of content words from Latin and French for historical British Isle reasons. This means that in a big tree of language, we exist in the Germanic branch. Here is that Germanic branch. The red languages are dead. Don't try to read this slide. The point here is to be a bit overwhelmed by all of our sibling languages, and we're that little gray arrow there. On the other side of our found family are Romance languages. All of those European languages that have Latin as their ancestor, that broke off and modified Latin in unique ways to become their own thing. French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Catalan, Romanian, etc. At first, Germanic and Romance languages seem very far from each other in the big tree of language, but when we zoom out like this to look at our great-great-great-grandparents, we see that we're closer than expected and with more cousins than expected. Here, above Romance languages, are other Italic languages and Anatolian, and across from them are Sanskrit, Hindi, Urdu, Persian, Bengali, and more. And here are those Germanic languages, and Gaelic and Slavic languages are in the same tree. Armenian, Russian, Polish, and Scots are all part of our larger family. When we zoom out this much, it's hard to see where it all goes to, but that very tiny title at the top says Indo-European. So English has been around for about 1,000 years. Romance languages are from about 2,000 years ago. But now we're traveling way back into the roots of Indo-European languages to somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago. We don't even have solid evidence of what words looked like, but through linguistic archaeology, we can piece together the common ancestor. So today's talk is called A Slice of Pie because we're talking about Proto-Indo-European, or PIE for short. This name does a pretty good job of telling you that this common ancestor touches most of Europe, the Baltics, Russia, and the Indian subcontinent. It's called a proto-language because we don't have any textual evidence for it. Linguists in the 1800s figured out that all these seemingly unrelated languages had a surprisingly similar terms for things like numbers, family members, body parts, animals, and a lot of verbs. Although the children languages that came after Proto-Indo-European had all modified their root terms in various ways, they were all governed by specific sound laws, and by systematically turning back the clock, undoing those known changes, linguists could see what root words all of these languages had based their variations on. One great example of this is the number 2, which is written in Proto-Indo-European as DWO. But you can see some languages, the D became a T, sometimes the W became a V or disappeared, sometimes that O shifted around in the mouth, or they added another vowel to become a diphthong. But you can see that they're all definitely related. That asterisk at the beginning of DWO is to show that this form has never been found in text. So there's no actual historical record of Proto-Indo-European, but taking into account how all of these children languages morphed their roots, this is the best estimate we have for which sounds existed together at some point 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. And I, of course, have a favorite Proto-Indo-European root, which is bear, meaning to bear or carry. So get ready for some bear words. Obviously, we get our English verb to bear, as in ring bearer, from this term, but there are a lot of other cousins if we start a little Ancestry.com journey together. As a side note, the animal, the bear, is probably not related. Even though I love bears, not related. It's probably related to the color brown, but etymology is hard and it's not certain. So other bear-like words we get here are burden, as well as birth, born, which is a participle of bear, and the name Berenice, which is from Greek. If you change the C in Berenice to a K, Berenike, you may be able to see that Berenice means bringer of victory. The B in bear can also become a V or an F sound, so you can now invite your long-lost cousin Fairy, which carries goods or people, to your bear family reunion. We have a lot of words from Latin that use this F-E-R spelling to mean bear. A conifer tree bears cones, like the bristle cones Christina talked about earlier, and Lucifer, before he became a hot fallen angel, was known as the light bringer. We also get proliferate, meaning to bear offspring, and vociferous, which describes a person whose voice carries. Many of these Latin words are just the F-E-R ending plus a preposition: refer, infer, defer. Suffer originally meant to tolerate, like in the phrase, I will not suffer fools. One of my favorite set of bear cousins are transfer and metaphor, which mean similar but very different things, and they also link us to another way you can respell this root word bear. Words we get from Greek change that F to a PH, so there are a lot of fur and for words that we've carried up through time from Greek into English. One is the name Christopher, which comes from Saint Christopher, who is a saint who maybe existed. His saintly story is that he was about to cross a river, and a small boy asked for a piggyback ride across. He helped the boy, and it turns out the boy was Jesus. So he was accidentally Christopher, the Christ bearer. We also get semaphore in this form, a system that carries symbols, pheromones, which carry hormones, and phosphorus, which carries light, just like Lucifer. So to sum up, we may look vastly different from our cousins in our present states, but when you go back far enough, we are all related, every Berenice, Christopher, and Lucifer, and we can all enjoy a little slice of pie. Thank you for your time.
That was awesome. So I was just making a note. So it's Christ-o-fur, meaning, so it's like Christ, little tiny shoulder guy carrier. Okay.
Yeah. So when it gets shortened to topher, it's just like a toe bearer. I don't know. It doesn't really. It's like how Moses is supposed to be like Ramses, but it's missing the God part at the beginning.
Ah, I did not know that.
Yeah.
How did you get into this? How did you get into this word nerdery?
I've really loved etymology for a long time, and people always think linguists know a bunch of languages. I do not, but if I wanted to be a good etymologist, I would, because you really need to know a lot. Like Tolkien knew a bunch, and that's why he was very good at making his own conlangs and things. But I think there's just something really satisfying to me about how we have all these metaphors about the world, but if you break down the parts of the words, they always come back to something concrete, something about your own body or the natural world, or this just very simple metaphor of carrying things that can take you so many different places. But I like how all the abstract comes back to something concrete you can do with your hands.
I am also a word nerd. I have a stack. It's too high up on my bookshelves, but I have a stack of like 15 thesauruses that I used to get, thesauri perhaps, that I used to get really excited to see the differences where they would like argue with each other about what things actually meant other things. But I honestly didn't realize until I was well into adulthood that it was something that you could actually do, that it was a pursuit that one could get into.
There's a very cool running series called The Oxford Etymologist, written by Anatoly Lieberman, and he's basically the greatest living etymologist of our time. And I met him and I hugged him. We are friends. But yeah, etymology is really hard. He's been working on an etymological dictionary on solid grounds, and not just like people are like, what if every word's from Irish? And then they make a whole dictionary assuming that. Like he actually does all the work, and it's not glamorous, but it's fun when you get these results. I think it's worth it.
You have your own sort of dictionary related word project.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sure. Yeah. I compiled a cybersecurity style guide a couple of years ago because I was a technical editor, and it turns out that security world is governed by the same rules of skateboarding world, which is if you make the trick, you get to name the trick. So there's no consistency. Like if I make a program or if Google makes a program, we are equal footing. And the way that we decide to spell it is the way it must be spelled sometimes, because in programming, precisely the way you have to write it matters. But it's just sort of like this industry respect people have for each other, but it means there's no consistency. And so the example I used to give was that there's the site GitHub and there's the site Pornhub. And the question is, do you capitalize the H? And it turns out you do in one and not in the other. There are no rules. And the internet is a vast topic. So it was helpful to have kind of a comprehensive guidebook for everyone, from the corporate side to the more fun hacker side, to just be like, how do you write that?
Yeah, it's a big endeavor. Yeah. All right, well, we're going to wrap this one up. We are at what, $9,849?
Yes.
As of now in our fundraiser. Would you like to provoke?
I would. I'm a bleeding heart. I'm literally bleeding heart here with my fellows pin. So yes, my plea for people to donate is twofold. First of all, the next talk is Isolde, and she makes all the lovely little Harveys. And oh my gosh, like it's a cult. It's a cult, and it's based on a cute bunny chicken. And why wouldn't you join that? But beyond that, when I joined Odd Salon, I had recently fallen and broken all my bones. And I just was like, what do I even have to offer the world anymore? And it was like, hey, you like weird old word stories? People will listen to that. They'll cheers you. It was like, wow, I still have value, even though I can't rotate my arms. I'm fine now. But Odd Salon has truly been like a found family. It's been a wonderful group of people to get to know. Everyone is excited when you're an expert on something that they're not an expert on. There's no like, oh, you're better than me because you know about Jell-O and I only know about bristlecombs. It's just like, man, isn't this great that we've all brought our own strange cakes to this party? So I think it's an amazing community, and you can't just make these things out of air. So if Odd Salon died, I'm sure we would all do interesting, weird things, but it wouldn't be as good as if we were all together making weird stuff.
Thank you so much. I totally agree. The people that have come to this project from the very beginning have been the absolute best thing about this project and continue to be. So thank you for being part of Odd Salon. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in December. I hope you come out.
That's the plan.
Everyone else at Oddments. And I think that we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Next up, we are bringing Isolde Honore. She's the San Francisco producer. She's also an Odd Salon Fellow from way back, and she hand makes all of these guys, which have traveled in the pockets of fellows and members and people in our audience. all the way around the world to all 7 continents to Antarctica 3 times. And she makes them all one by hand because she's amazing. And Trey has just let me know that we just hit $9,999. So someone should get in there and put us right over the halfway mark before we see Isolde. That would be amazing. Thank you all for being here.
We did it.
Oh, we did.
Hey!
Brianne, thank you. You're the halfway person. Woo. Okay. Thank you so much. We will be back at 4:45 with Isolde Honore and her tiny whirlpool hangers. Thank you so much.
Awesome.